Hello, my name is Mr. Curtis, and this is Bruce. Bruce has his pencil in hand. He's doing some warm-up exercises because we're back to the drawing board today for Abstract Art Part 2. Thank you, Bruce. We'll pick it up later. So, Abstract Art Part 2. It's very fitting that we're back at the drawing board because this is our last video lesson for this series. I know, Bruce is a little bit sad about that, but I think it's going to be a fun one. So we're going to start this lesson off with kind of a bit of a drawing game, and then we'll be turning the results of that drawing game into a piece of abstract art. So I think it's going to be fun. It's going to be pretty stress-free, and I think we'll have a good time. So I'm going to let Bruce down here. Down you go, Bruce. He's going to go off to his drawing station over there. We'll check in with him later. Let's get started. In part 1, we made abstract art in 3D with abstract sculpture. This time we're going to make abstract art on a flat surface, or in 2 dimensions. My students often express that abstract art is hard to understand at first. So why do artists make abstract art? Artists make abstract art to express ideas that are hard to find words for, or to express strong emotions or ideas about a spiritual world, a world we cannot see. Sometimes artists are more interested in exploring color and line than in making representational art of things like people, houses, or animals. Sometimes artists use images we recognize, but abstract them to give it new meaning. So now that we've seen some examples to inspire us, let's go and make some art. Alright, find yourself a piece of regular old printer paper and your favorite pencil, and get ready to draw. So for this little drawing game, I want you to sit very comfortably, relax, and try to clear your mind of all of your thoughts. And we're just gonna try to make some lines and shapes. That's what this is about. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say some descriptive words, some adjectives. Well, most of them are adjectives. And then when I say that descriptive word, I want you to draw a line or a shape that describes that or fits that description. A line or shape that embodies the character of that description. Okay, and we've got a bunch of different words. We're not going to spend too much time with each of them. Maybe about 30 seconds at the most. Most of the time we'll try to even be quicker than that. And don't think too much about where you're placing your lines. Just make the lines or the shapes, and then after we're done, we're going to do something with that abstract work that you will have just made, and we're going to continue that process and make something else. Okay, so let's get started. The first word is fast. Let's make some fast lines. Oh, there's some fast lines. Okay, next word is slow. Nice slow lines. Or at least one slow line. However many slow lines you want. Crack. Black. Soft. A little cotton ball here. Free. Weak. joy, terror, strong, nice strong shape. Swim. What's a swimming line look like? Swimming line. Rigid. Lazy. Furry. And simple. There we go. It's a simple little shape. And that's it. That is all the words I have. You might think of some other words that you could use, and you could keep going with different words. But that's all the words that I have for us today. So have a look at your picture now. You know, what do you think of it? It's probably something that you would never have drawn maybe on your own. Sometimes exercises like this take us into new directions which we might not have gone before, which is kind of fun. So, but we're going to do something more with this now. So I'm going to put this aside, and I want you to pick out another piece of paper. Okay, another piece of paper. So what we're going to do with this piece of paper is fold it. So I want you to fold that in half. Fold it exactly in half. Like that. And then fold it in half again. There we go. And fold it in half again. And fold it in half one more time. If you can. There we go. Okay. Now we're going to open that piece of paper up. And you should have a bunch of squares like this. So what I want you to do now is to choose one of these middle squares, and we're going to cut them out. So find yourself a pair of scissors, and I'm going to cut out this one. But you can choose any one of these 4 middle squares, okay? I'm going to just... Okay, put that little square aside. You don't need that anymore. And you should have a piece of paper that looks like that. So what we're doing is we're making a little window. So you should have a window. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tape this together, because it just makes it a little easier for what we're going to do next. So if you've got some tape, you can tape that together, but it's not absolutely necessary. You can still do the exercise without taping this down, but I feel like it's going to make things a little easier. Okay, so we've got our window. Next thing is bring in your line and shape picture. There we go. Now what we're going to do is you're going to take that little window piece of paper, and I want you can either hold it this way where it's oriented landscape, or you can do a portrait, whichever way. And we're going to move that around, or you could even do diagonal if you want. Move it around and have a look at your picture through your window to see what images you can find. Now you might find pictures that you recognize. For example, I think I've just found a little landscape here. We've got some waves of an ocean. We've got a bit of a building maybe here, and then some grass or some distant trees, some forest in the background. But all represented very abstractly, but that's kind of what I see. Move it around. What else do we got here? All kinds of interesting things. And you don't have to see anything that you recognize, but you might even just see a collection of shapes and lines that look interesting to you. I like kind of this composition. This is interesting to me. This little swirl down here, and this terror scribble up here, and then this very rigid shape that I made here. They've got an interesting relationship. It's almost like three different characters together. Move it around, just move it around. Oh, it looks like there might be a profile of a face here somewhere. Could be. Huh. Just keep moving that around and see what you can find. So I'm going to keep moving this around and see what I can find. What we're going to do next is, once you've found your favorite composition within this window that you've made, we're going to take that composition and we're going to get another piece of paper and we're going to remake this little composition here on that other piece of paper using a variety of materials and make another image, our finished image. Okay, I've got it all set up here. I've chosen my composition here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reinterpret this on my watercolor paper that I've got here. So how you do this is completely up to you. You don't have to use watercolor paint if you don't want to. You could do collage, you could do acrylic paint. It's totally up to you. You can use whatever materials you want. You could use marker, you could use pencil crayons, whatever materials you want to reinterpret this. You could change this somewhat as you're reinterpreting it, or you could try to replicate it as exact as, you know, the exact measurements that you see here. You can try to duplicate those these shapes the same way you see it here, but larger. I'm going to do a bit of that because I like so much how these three characters look in here. I'm going to try to duplicate it as closely as I can, or accurately as I can, on here. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a watercolor wash, and I've never really tried a wash this big before, but I'm going to try it, and I'm going to have my background have some color to it, just hopefully not too dark of a color, and then I'm going to add my shapes on top. And I don't know exactly what colors they're going to be yet, but I think my background is going to be sort of a blue and purple mix. So we will see how this turns out. And here's the finished piece. Just in case you're curious, I used a watercolor pencil for the colored areas here. Watercolor pencil is just a pencil crayon that when you add water to it, it turns into watercolor paint. So I kept it mostly as a pencil crayon, and these areas here I added a little bit of water just to dilute the color a bit. I wasn't that happy with the results, so I didn't do it for the rest of the areas, and I liked the sketchy quality of the texture with the pencil crayon, so I kept it like that. Use whatever materials you have at home. It doesn't have to be watercolor paint. You can use acrylic paint. If you've got magazines and construction paper around, you can use collage techniques. You can use multiple techniques together to make your results. Another approach you can use is you can reinterpret these shapes that you have that you had on your exercise. I decided to redraw those shapes and lines that I made in my exercise exactly the way that I saw them, but just adding color to those shapes and changing them slightly. But if you want, you can also add to those shapes to make them a little more recognizable. For example, I told you how I thought this shape in my original exercise looked like a helicopter. Well, I could have added more pieces to it, more shapes to it, to make it look like a recognizable helicopter, maybe an abstracted one. And same thing with this shape here. It looks a bit like it could be a figure. I could add a face here and it might look like a person wearing a cloak. So there's things that you can do to give it a little more personality, to make it a little more figurative, a little more recognizable, if you want. But I decided to go with just lines, shapes, and colors and try to keep it as abstract as I could. That was my choice. So, what do you think of abstract art? Maybe you already are a fan of abstract art, and this was just a walk in the park for you. But I know for most of us, abstract art is a little bit harder to understand than, let's say, representational art, or something like a realistic portrait of a person's face, like the Mona Lisa, for example. That we can look at and understand immediately when we see it. Abstract art, we have to think a little bit more about what we're looking at, and it takes a little bit more work to appreciate it. So my challenge to you going forward, because this is our last video of this video series, I'm going to end this with a challenge to you. When you make art, not only be creative, but be adventurous and try something new. You might just discover a new love for a medium of art that you've never tried before, or of a style of art that you've never really considered as being interesting. So, that's my challenge. Speaking of challenges, I wonder how Bruce was challenged by today's project. Let's check out his abstract picture. Hey Bruce, how's your abstract picture coming along? Oh, let's see. Wow! Oh, so Bruce had a loop in his exercise as well. I guess we're just a bunch of loopy guys. So, this is it for us. I hope you've had fun. Until next time, until we meet again, keep thinking creatively and be kind to yourself.